You know, when Andy Kaufman died of cancer in the mid-1980s, some of the obituaries called him a comic genius. Some of them call him a moronic irritant. I basically just call him Andy Kaufman. But the kayfabe that we were addicted to back in the late 70s, early 80s, in the Quebec fans like International Wrestling, Atlantic Grand Prix, and the Maritime, he honed that to such a way in an infamous feud with Jerry the King Lawler that's been talked about and analyzed and rehashed, because everything's on YouTube. There's documentaries, there's the Letterman appearance. But this is mostly for people who've never heard of the feud. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. It was beyond. He was the first. If there was an internet in 1982 like it is in 2022, Andy Kaufman would be a billionaire, because the hits and the various aspect would be just tremendous. Now, according to published sources, he was inspired by the theatricality of kayfabe, the stage nature of the sport, and his own tendency to form elaborate hoaxes. Saturday Night Live, doing a great Gatsky impersonation, pretending he was married. Now, he loved wrestling from an early age, and as part of his onstage act, which was an expansion of his Latka character, expansion of his Saturday Night Live character, Here I Come to Save the Day, he began wrestling women during his act and proclaimed himself the undefeated and unchallenged intergender wrestling champion of the world. Now, he took on a very, very misogynist, anti-woman stance, basically said no woman can beat me. And some of these matches were setups with friends and family. I think his future wife was a wrestler for a number of matches. He started developing this ridiculous version of Andy Kaufman, which was more the wrestling version of Andy Kaufman. Now, a lot of people thought he was ridiculous, and he had a ridiculous personality to begin with. It was based on the characters invented by professional wrestlers, like the kayfabe characters. Gorgeous George, there's a little bit of Gorgeous George in his character, a little bit of Ric Flair, little bit of Nick Bockwinkel, a little bit of, I know it sounds weird, kind of Hulk Hogan, but turned down. At the time, he offered a $1,000 prize to any woman who could pin him, and some of them were legitimate matches, while others were setups. Now, he employed, of all people, for importance harness, Laurie Anderson, a friend of his, in his act for a while. Now, he did approach the head of the World Wrestling Federation at the time, Vince McMahon Sr., about bringing his act to New York wrestling territory. Now, according to Wrestling with Regret, Vince Jr. brought him in for one event where he was taking on a woman on a WWF affiliate card, but he was scared. Man against woman. Even now in 2022, WWE does not have matches with women against men. McMahon somewhat dismissed Kaufman's idea, as the elder McMahon was not about to bring show business in his pro wrestling society. Now, this was before Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou Albano. Now, Kaufman had by then developed a friendship with wrestling reporter, photographer, the great Bill Apter. After many discussions about Kaufman's desire to be in the pro wrestling business, Apter called Memphis wrestling icon Jerry King Lawler and introduced him to Kaufman by telephone. Now, when he finally stepped in the ring in the Memphis wrestling circuit, I think he took on a female wrestler called Foxy. Now, I forget if it was Brown or whatever, it was called Foxy. Anyway, he was manhandling her, and then Lawler came into the ring to defend her, and then that's when the shit hit the fan. Kaufman, a series of promos before his match against Lawler, the Memphis, Tennessee, this is soap, this is how you use it, and this is toilet paper, you use it to not stink. Now, he had several tape, I'm from Hollywood, and people in Hollywood are better than you, Memphis, Tennessee. If people are making fun of people in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, here's something like that, they're going to friggin' kill him. And the Hollywood documentary that came out in '89 showed some of the reaction of the Memphis fans. Memphis is just like the Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling fans. We took our wrestling very seriously. Now, Kaufman called the city, Memphis, the nation's redneck capital. So you're making fun of right-wingers with guns, and you're from Hollywood, a right coast left-winger. Now, the ongoing Lawler-Kaufman feud, which often featured the great Jimmy Hart and other heels in Kaufman's corner, included a number of stage works, such as a broken neck for Kaufman as a result of Lawler's pile driver. and a famous on-air fight on an 82 episode of Late Night with David Letterman. Now, highlights of the match were shown on Saturday Night Live. I think Brian Dolan Murray who hosted that, and basically the fans were against him. But David Letterman, when Kaufman and Lawler had their famous shoot 5 months after the incident, where he was still in a neck brace, Kaufman basically asked Jerry Lawler to apologize, and Lawler, kayfabing, says, what kind of man are you, and such, slaps him across the face. Kaufman, in a barrage of obscenities, and in some places it went out live. The F word and the S word and all that. It was totally bizarre. We only found out years later that it was all a work. Now, for some time after that first match, again, he appeared wearing a neck brace, insisting that the injuries were much worse than they really were. The whole thing happened when he was brought to hospital. There was planted stories in the local media, pictures of him taken away on a stretcher at the hospital, all that. Now, Kaufman would continue to defend the Intergender Championship in the Mid-South Coliseum and offer an extra prize other than $1,000 that if he were pinned. The woman who pinned him would get to marry him, and that Kaufman would also shave his head, which is a trope in wrestling, not the marriage, but the hair trope. Now, eventually it was revealed that the Feud wrestling matches were stage works, and that Kaufman and Lawler were, well, I wouldn't say friends, but, monetary colleagues. This was not disclosed until more than 10 years after Kaufman's death, when the Emmy-nominated documentary Comedy Salute to Andy Kaufman aired on NBC in 1995. Jim Carrey, who revealed the secret, later went on to play Kaufman in the 1999 film Man in the Moon, which talks about the relationship between Lawler and Kaufman. Now, in a 1997 interview with the Memphis Flyer, Lawler said he had improvised during their first match and the Letterman incident. I would say yes. If you really watch it, how much was in Lawler's mind as it was going on, and the slap was a real slap, ladies and gentlemen. Now, although officials at St. Francis Hospital stated that Kaufman's neck injuries were real in his 2002 biography, It's Good to Be the King Sometimes, Lawler detailed how he came up with the angle and kept it quiet. Even though Kaufman's injury was legitimate, the pair exaggerated it. He also said that Kaufman's furious tirade and performance on Letterman was Kaufman's own idea, including when Lawler slapped Kaufman out of his chair. Promoter Jerry Jarrett, Jeff's father, later recalled that the 2 years he would mail Kaufman payments comparable to what other main event wrestlers were getting at the time, but Kaufman never deposited the checks. Now, his wrestling connection didn't stop there. He appeared in the 1983 film My Breakfast with Blassie with professional wrestling personality Classy Freddie Blassie. The film was a parody of the art film My Dinner with Andre, and it's hilarious, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Lynn Margulis, sister of the film's director Johnny Legend, appears in it and became romantically involved with Kaufman. Now, ironically, in 2002, Kaufman became a playable character in the video game Legends of Wrestling 2 and a standard character in 2004 Showdown Legends of Wrestling. In 2008, Jakks Pacifics produced for the WWE Classic Superstars toy line an action figure 2-pack of Kaufman and Lawler, as well as a separate figure release with a royal blue robe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you got to understand this. Before Hogan won the title in WWE, there was regional territories, I know a lot of people about this, that basically had their own champions, their own kayfabe. Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, you had Leo Burke and all the key wrestlers, the Cuban, No Class, Bobby Bass, Killer Carl Krupp. Memphis had its own territory, New York State had its own territory, Vern Gagne, AWA, NWA with Ric Flair and what's considered turned into the Turner Group. But it wasn't a worldwide phenomenon like it is now. Sure, Inoki was big in Japan, no pun intended, because of his match with Ali, his appearances in movies. But what was happening in Memphis, to a lot of people, Andy Kaufman was sort of like a cult hero. When he showed up on Fridays, basically he was fired from his appearance there. Like, a lot of people disliked him. So why would Lawler not take advantage of that, and why would Kaufman decide to go into Memphis? He gave the ball to Vince McMahon Sr. He knew what was coming. He was ahead of his time. But if he would have lived, let's say, if his cancer would have been in remission or whatever, 85, 86, 87, 88, the Sam Kinison area and Andrew Dice Clay, you'd imagine the money he would have made in wrestling promotion and all that. You look at Logan Paul taking on Roman Reigns for the title and all the celebrities. It all starts with Andy Kaufman. But Andy wasn't a non-wrestler. He could wrestle women. But like I said, it was like grappling. It's like what I call mat work. But some of the women he took on, there was a match, I think, the wrestler, it was fake, of course, you're 323 pounds, 6 feet tall, and you were kind of wondering what the hell is going on. Not saying he had a death wish, but he had a wish to draw attention to himself. Is this the greatest wrestling feud of all time? No, but it's top 20 for sure. Now, a lot of people in 2022 look at AEW and MJF and all that, right? MJF is a child of the post-Kaufman era, and the way he talks, there's a little bit of Andy Kaufman in him. Anytime you get the Miz that says something, or before he turned into the Uce, Sami Zayn, and things like that, there's a little bit of Andy Kaufman. But only Andy Kaufman would come up with literally verbally attacking the fans of Jerry Lawler. Oh, you're from Memphis, Tennessee, talking like this. He said it was insulting women and the white people of the whole state. And what was kind of weird, there was an article I read, I think in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, he never verbally attacked black people. So he was attacking the white rednecks, racists down there with their own kind of thing, because white people used to make fun of black people for being slow and stuff like that. So he was taking a lot of. I'm surprised he didn't get a bullet, because if you look at the old tapes of Memphis Wrestling in those rings, there's no security there. You think Atlantic Grand Prix was bad back in the day with Killer Carl Krupp getting stabbed in the ass and people trying to kill the Cuban. It was freaky back in the day. Ladies and gentlemen, the best thing wrestling ever did was bring in security for people that wanted to kill people like Andy Kaufman. So if this is the first time you're hearing about Andy Kaufman against Lawler, I'm sorry, but like I said, there's a lot of things on YouTube, a lot of documentaries. But the Letterman tape, I don't like David Letterman. David Letterman is an asshole. He's basically untalented. He's egotistical. What he did with Harvey Picard, different people make fun of his guests. But Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman legitimized David Letterman. So in the modern talk show era, they invented that where anything could happen. So David Letterman owes a lot of money still to Jerry Lawler, maybe $20 million, because no Lawler and Kaufman, no Letterman. People were watching to see what was going to happen after this happened. By the way, that was a slap runner I heard around the world, and it made major headlines in Canada, and it didn't catch on, because none of these shows from Memphis and different shows were being shown in Canada. We were getting Calgary Stampede, right? We're getting the Montreal Wrestling, getting Atlantic Grand Prix on the weekends, sometimes NWA. That's about it. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our sports podcast, and yes, wrestling is a sport, please let us know and like, comment, or subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.